Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Answers from the Stairs. I am the host, Chris Fester, and I've got with me, we were just kind of reminiscing about when we met 5 years ago this month, which was, we thought it was the end of the world. March 2020, the world was shutting down. We're at an event where we're doing some crazy things, ice baths and Wim Hof breathing and climbing mountains in no shirt and in the snow and all this craziness to be met with the airports shutting down as we were coming home on March 15th. But Mikey Taylor, who has had what I think a really incredible story to go from professional skateboarder to someone who invests in a ton of real estate. And I love the fact that some of that, best I could tell, got started in like the storage space, which is
hmm
something I actually have a lot of interest in. And then now is a city council member and mayor pro tem of that town. And I even had to investigate, how do you become mayor? Like, what does mayor pro tem mean? And that means that once you made the city council says, no, we're gonna ask you to be the mayor. That's kind of how that works, right?
Yeah, so Mayor Pro Tem, I guess you could think of as like the vice president. So they are second in line to the mayor. And then if the mayor can't be at certain things, Mayor Pro Tem is next in line. And then if the mayor is basically, let's say, out, the Mayor Pro Tem takes the role during that time period. And that I was voted to in the beginning of this year. So it's
Yeah.
been about 2.5 months.
So it's kind of crazy. Father to four children, three girls and a son. In fact, when we met, we were just discussing it. You were a girl dad, so I was really able to relate to you at that time. And now you've got one boy that came after that, and then another daughter who came along after that. So four
Yeah.
children, and married to Jen. How long have you guys been married?
This summer will be 15 years.
And congratulations. That's a
Thank
big
you.
that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I ask everybody, we go way, way back. You were born August 29th, 1982, Newberry Park, California. Did I get that part right?
I was born in Tarzana, which is a city in the valley, and then I made my way to a city in Newbury Park in my early teen years.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So I know you don't remember your being born, but what's the first time you remember that you were actually paid to perform something? Like was it an allowance or were you, I mean, I've had guys that were running newspaper routes and trash routes. I've had all kinds of stories on here. What was the first time you were paid to perform a service?
Okay, so I was friends with this guy, Scott Brommer, and his parents put him on an allowance. I think he got maybe $100 a month, and he had to pay for everything. So he had to pay for shoes, clothes, going to the whatever it was. And I remember thinking that was so cool that I came home. I think I was 13 and I pitched this idea to my parents like, Mom, Dad, what if you guys give me $100 a month and I'm in charge of buying everything? And my dad looks at me and goes, Everything? I'm like, Yeah. And he goes, Deal. And he said it so fast that I went, uh-oh, did I undersell myself? And then very quickly I realized that $100 doesn't get you that far when you have to pay for everything. So my first experience wasn't me going out and earning. It was actually more on the management side. I have this much. How do I make it last?
Wow, because that's a pretty big picture of the future for you. Because
It's totally relevant to what I do now. And then I
really,
would say, yeah, the first time I got paid, my dad was a wedding photographer. And so I used to go on weddings with him and, help bring up and set down the flashes, change the back in the camera, bring all the bags in. And so I made a little bit of money doing that. At some weddings, we got tipped, but those were the two earliest times I can remember as far as making money and then having to manage it.
gotcha, gotcha. And then the professional skateboard scene. Like you became a professional at 19 is what I could find. Where did the idea that even could it be a profession? Is it just a hobby? I mean, street skating's still a thing, you know? I mean, like I'm old enough to remember when Tony Hawk made the cover of Sports Illustrated, and you'd have thought the world had come to an end because it was a quote unquote non-athlete on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Right.
But I was a skater at the time, so I was like, "Oh my God, Tony Hawk made the cover!" Like walk me through that process of something that's seemingly a hobby to most. Did you see yourself being professional? Or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is in the beginning, no. I picked it up organically. One of my friends started skateboarding. I wanted to fit in. I got a skateboard also. And I got very into it, very obsessed over it, and started doing it 24/7. It's all I could think about, it's all I could do. And I started getting pretty good at it. And then right around 16, 17, my parents looked at me and said, it's time to get a job. And I did not want to get a job yet because I didn't want to lose time that was going towards skateboarding. And so I tried to find an alternative path, which, at 17 years old, it was, look, mom and dad, all I'm really buying is skateboards, shoes, clothes, and food. That's all my money's going towards. What if I could get sponsored and I can get free product? Then I'm not going to have to buy any of this stuff. And maybe I could sell some of it to the local skaters. And that will be kind of my money to, if I go out and eat or, et cetera, et cetera. And so my parents said, yeah, sure. Okay. If you can pull that off, you won't have to get a job. And so I made all these videos of myself skateboarding. I sent it to all these sponsors. And I had 3 companies call me back and start sending me free product. And so that basically gave me about a year and a half until it was basically time to graduate. And in that interim, some of those sponsors started promoting me. So I had photos in the magazines, I had some videos in some of the skateboard movies. And then the summer after I was supposed to graduate, a couple of them were doing these big European tours that they wanted me to go on. And so that was kind of the first time where I went, maybe there's something here. But skateboarding was so small that even I was uncomfortable with the idea of jumping into the skateboard industry, not going to college. I was a little bit uneasy at that transition as well. So originally, I thought it was going to be temporary. Maybe I traveled the world and did this for a few years, almost like some gap years, and then went back to school. And then it ended up turning into almost a 14-year professional skateboarding career.
Wow, that's crazy. In fact, just looking up achievements, 2014 X Games Real Street fan favorite. Did you even remember you got like that's a big
Yeah.
deal? The fan
Yeah.
favorites, like it's one thing to win the gold just because you're great, but when the fans are like you're our favorite, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. That was a look. I didn't win a lot of contests in the skateboard in my skateboarding career. The best I ever did was 6th place in X Games. But yeah, to win that one, that was a great feeling. Totally.
But don't sell yourself short. Sixth place in the X Games, you're competing against the best on the planet. So I mean, that's sixth best on the
Well,
planet.
yeah, yeah. The reason why that's true. The reason why I said it that way is one, I am ultra competitive. I'll tell you straight up, I don't like 6th place. Like I get that the frame to make me feel better is that's 6th in the world, but for me, I want 1st place. Like that is my bar. The second part and the added dynamic to it is skateboarding. When I started, there was no contest scene. It was all about yourself, right? You compete with you. And I loved that. And when skateboarding competition entered the space, I just didn't grow up in that environment. So I didn't learn how to skate at skate parks. I learned how to skate in the streets. And contests are skate parks. So it is what it is. But look, I want to win. If I'm doing anything, I want to be the best at it. And if I don't have a shot at that, it's hard for me to stay engaged.
Right. So that competitiveness, that competitive nature, like I think that's talking to lots of entrepreneurial people. Like that's if there's one thing they have in common, it's that.
Yeah.
I want to create, like most of them are very creative in their space. And I want to be the best at what I can do. You coming from something that, I mean, skateboarding is, people may not realize that's an extremely creative sport. I mean, you're always
Right.
thinking of new things to be done, but it's still a sport. right? And you see a lot of guys that never transition from the idea of athleticism or something that they can do with their body to managing their money well,
Mm.
right? And then beginning to use their mind for what pays them. And it's not saying that they're not smart. They just have never been stewarded that way or discipled that way of what's next and to be looking forward.
Right.
But when I looked at you, there was a couple different things that stood out to me. You were an investment in a brewing company that seemed to do really well because you exited that situation, St. Archer Brewing. But you also got into the idea of, I'm gonna call it mailbox money, real estate investments, really, really, really early into your skateboarding career.
Mm.
What caused those two things? What made you look outside? I mean, you said it, you thought it was going to be short term, so that maybe that's part of it. Was it that? And what made you look at those specific ventures, the brewing company and then the storage space?
Okay, so it all started from this idea of I'm not going to college, so I don't know what my true skill set is to earn. And so while I'm earning as a skateboarder, I better maximize my money. And that really started becoming beneficial when I brought somebody in to help. So I had a lot of help at a young age with somebody who taught me about the fundamentals, how to create a budget, how to build my credit, how to truly like have a plan to allocate assets in areas that, achieve your goals. And in the beginning, it was very, very basic, right? Like I was investing in funds in the market. I was funding my IRA and like I was doing everything that probably most people participate in like a conventional sense. Storage came into play because my mentor, his brother ran a storage portfolio and they brought it to me. I had no clue what storage was. I didn't know how to underwrite storage. I looked at him and went, why should I invest in this? And I remember him saying, one, there's demand for it. Two, it's a physical asset. And three, once it's built, you get paid cash flow. And the two things that really stuck out for me were the cash flow, one, and two, the appreciation combo. And the reason why I say that, I was young. So I was in the life cycle of when you're trying to grow your investments. You're not typically looking at dividends because in, investment talk, dividends are going to pay you a lower yield than what the potential growth could be on either a growth stock or a piece of real estate or investing into a business. But because my career was so potentially short-lived, that cash flow is actually a desire of mine. And so real estate was just a really good way for me to capture both, where I could grow my wealth through appreciation and I could still have some cash flow coming in that I felt like was going to be some security for when my career ended so that I had money coming in without me going out and earning. And that was I think that was more a representation of my lack of, I don't know if it's knowledge, but my lack of understanding what my true skill set was and not knowing how I would be able to monetize that in the future. Now, looking back, I, I know how to make money now. And so I have a different investment strategy today than I did when I was skating, but that was really it at the time. And then the brewery was, I was actually a founder in the brewery. So the brewery was my first step into creating my own business. Um, and that was because I asked my at the time girlfriend's dad if I could marry her, and he grilled me on what I was going to do after skateboarding, and I had no answers. I really left the meeting or the lunch going, I don't know if he's going to say yes. He did, and just that conversation really put it front and center on my mind that I have to figure out what's next now. I can't wait until the end of my career to figure out what I'm going to do after. So the brewery was the my first step into creating a business that was going to be my next life stage after skateboarding.
Right. And that lasted about 3 years before you exited that deal.
Yeah, it took us about a year of working on it. And then we had to raise money for it. We didn't have enough money to do it ourselves. So it took us maybe another 7 to 8 months to get it launched. And then we had it for about 3.5 years and we sold it to Miller Coors.
Yeah. That's not a bad exit.
No, it was a great exit. That was a great exit.
And that gave you, I'm assuming, some more capital. So you're getting the situation where you know your career of skating is going to be low. You want to get smart. You've got good mentors, early mentorship, and I'm assuming that's Randy and Randall and Jerry. That's the two
Yeah.
brothers.
Yep.
Um, and then okay, you got this business. You exit. That was the capital influx there. Like, was that the first time you started looking at, okay, well, like let's look at more than just storage? Like, is that, do I have the timing
Um,
of that close or?
it's actually really close. So storage was the first like real estate investments I was making, and then I was also investing in a debt fund on commercial real estate. So I had the equity part covered and I had the debt part covered on commercial. I was making investments into some startups. So I started messing around in the kind of venture space and the private equity space. And then when we sold the company, one, yeah, I had more resources. Like my ability to put capital to work went significantly up. And then the second thing that happened was I now had an investor base that we made a lot of money for. So they were looking at myself and I had two other partners at what we were going to do next because they wanted to do it again. And then we got a lot of exposure for selling the business in, articles like, Forbes wrote an article on us, Business Insider wrote an article on us. And then my network started expanding, which meant I had more capital accessible for the next thing. And so that was, let's see, 2016. By the end of 16, I think we were all gone from St. Archer. All of us had left. And then 17 is when I really started working at what is my current business,
Which is commune capital.
which is Commune Capital, correct?
Yeah. And the last number I saw posted, I'm sure it was a little over 300 million in holdings. Is that
Yeah, I actually have a point to go to my compliance officer today because that number went up. So right now on our site it's about 315, but it's gone up. So I'm actually after this podcast going to have him reassess the new number. Yeah, but we're climbing. We're getting there.
great? But it's apartment complexes, correct? Is that what the majority of it is? Is
Uh,
multiple
we
doors or?
we do storage and we do multifamily apartments. Those are the
Gotcha.
two. Right now, technically, our storage portfolio is a little bit larger than multifamily, but not for long. The multifamily portfolio is about to uh, leap past the storage portfolio.
Gotcha. One of the things that you said a while ago, a couple of different things. So looking and hearing you speak, this idea of being really prudent early, and you have financial independence, retire early, fire. Like that's one of the things that you talk about. Um, and we talked about the first time you had to manage that $100 allowance because your dad agreed to it so quickly. So you learned to really, hey, let's look at the management of capital. Let's look at the management of funds and the management of growth. But you also spoke to having early mentors.
Right.
You spend a lot of time and a lot of your content is specifically aimed at giving as much information as possible to
Right.
people so that they can make wise decisions. Why do you feel so led to do that?
Well, you you get to a point where you realize that there's nothing really special about money. It's just a tool. For myself specifically, I hit the ceiling in a career, and so I felt what it feels like to go to the very top and then have nowhere else to go but down. And I started looking for more ways to feel fulfilled. And I would say the other thing is, um, like for me, I'm a believer. I believe that God gave me a talent and a skill that should be used to glorify Him.
Amen.
And I was given something at a early age, which changed the trajectory of my future. I would not be speaking to you today if those people wouldn't have come into my life when I was young. And when I exited a skate career and then got out of the brewery, I looked around and none of my friends were in the scenario I was in. It felt like I was on an island of my own. And I did not like that feeling. And so I wanted to take what I had learned and give that back to as many people as I possibly could so that they would have the same opportunity I had. I'll give you the information. Now it's on you to use it and run with it to whatever level that, you know, you can get to. But the big thing that I wanted to include in that is the example of money for us is typically only shown through either a consumer mindset or a wealth and status mindset. Our examples of wealth aren't that good. And so I wanted to try to be an alternative voice to show people that managing money is important. It's something that we all should be good at, but that doesn't mean that you have to love money and worship money. There's a fine balance between the two. And so I started doing it, and then, years went by, and now I'm still blown away when people come up to me and go, I bought a house because I watched a video on you on how to save, and I started implementing it, and then I did it. Or I put my first $1,000 into an IRA. Like, those are the coolest types of just messages because I was actually able to do something that benefited somebody else. It's a very cool feeling when you can pass that down.
That's good. Um, and part of the reason I wanted to bring you on here is because like you and I had a lot of faith conversation 5 years ago. Like we were at that event and there was a lot of faith driven conversation at that event. So I knew where you were in that. And I think that's one of the things that's missing actually from the faith community is the use of money correctly.
Right.
Because it's so often looked at as that they're just trying to gain wealth and it's greed. But your ability to take money and multiply it has given you a situation where you can have bigger and larger impact. And
Yeah.
as a believer, speaking as a believer, and speaking to people's lives, and when you tell people, financial independence, the number one thing I think the enemy can do to hold us down is to keep us financially burdened. And if we're never taught how to actually use tool as a money or use money as a tool, then that's going to be we don't know how to get under that burden.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And look, like everybody should know this. The Bible talks about money so much. It's like one of the most talked about topics in the entire Bible, right? So it is in there for us to know about. And then I would say the second part is like really if you're looking at like the body or the church, the only real example that we've had of somebody who tried to enter and kind of give good guidance or stewardship was Dave Ramsey. And I don't want to knock Dave because I think probably pound for pound, he's helped more people in the finance space than maybe anyone has ever done up until this point. But Dave Ramsey goes after debt. That's it. Like that's his lane. And when it comes to growing wealth, actually debt comes into the picture, but it's a different type of debt. I think for Christians, it's a hard thing to swallow because we're taught that, the debtor, or if you're in debt, you're enslaved to the master, right? Like that's not a good place to be. But there's a very specific debt that's referring to. And then when you start playing the game of wealth build, debt backed by assets actually becomes a very strong strategy. And that's something that Dave Ramsey just doesn't support. So I thought that there was maybe a good opportunity to add to kind of, what his message was. And then two, we have 15 years up, 15 years down, right? If you're 40, you can resonate as high as 55 and as low as 25. And so as you see those influential people get older, they're just not able to capture the new youth coming in. And when it comes to money, the younger you get in, the better you're going to be. So I did like the idea that I could start tapping into, in this case, Gen Z, and try to prepare them before they go to college, before they, fall into the consumer debt trap, and prepare them to actually go out and make sound financial decisions. And then the other cool thing is you're looking at the stats. Like Gen Z is one of the most financial savvy generations we've had in a while. So I think it's good timing for it as well.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Because I agree with you. I don't want to tear down anything Dave's done because I think he's done, like you said, I think the pound for pound, you use that word, you use that correctly. But it's so much of it comes from a scarcity mindset.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
and the idea that with scarcity, you can't impact the way you can when you develop a strategy to build wealth. With the end of that strategy goes, I'm going to have some massive, this, not me, this wealth can have some massive impact when it comes to the good that can be done specifically around the church.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
I think it's a
That's
missed
right.
opportunity.
That's the parable of the talents. What
Yeah,
happened to the person that was scared and buried his talent so that he knew it would be there, you know, when the master came back. Like that was not somebody who was blessed by his action.
correct. Right. And I think and it goes to heart too. I mean,
Right.
it's, we judge other people by what we see. We judge ourselves by our own intentions. But if the intentions are there, then the fruit will be there that bears it.
Correct.
Um, so with the idea of you pouring so much back into like everybody, like there's a lot of generosity in that. Where do you think? I mean, you said it. You had people that came into your life very, very early, but generosity is something usually it's a cult. Like
Hmm.
you catch that from somewhere. Where do you think you caught the idea of generosity from?
That's a good question. I would actually start by saying, like, one of the areas in my life that probably has the highest opportunity to improve on is being a servant. Like, I'm just not naturally good at that, or maybe the better way to say it is, I haven't put enough work in to feel like I'm performing that at the level I should. So I don't want to say what I'm about to say and it come off as if I'm just crushing it at this. I know this is actually an opportunity in my life to improve on it. But I actually think it came from the skate community.
Mm,
And
wow.
it wasn't necessarily generosity though. The what helped me build this framework was in the skate world, like we would go out with our friends who were other skaters, and there'd be a photographer and there'd be a filmer. And we would go to, let's say, one spot, a 10-stair handrail. And everyone would be trying to do the tricks that they wanted to do that was maybe the best to their ability. And what would happen a lot of times is if there were five guys there, maybe two of them would get tricks and the other three wouldn't. Or maybe one person would get a trick and the four wouldn't. But every once in a while, we would go to a spot and every single person would get a trick, but it was never in an even timeline. One person would always do it in like 5 tries. One person would maybe do it in 20 minutes, and then there would always be one person that was grinding, like trying a trick for hours. And whenever that person was in that scenario, all the other skaters would turn into like the therapist and the cheerleaders, right? You got this. Chris, you got it next try. Stay with it. We know you could do it, right? And then in those scenarios where everyone did the trick, it was like a party. Like
Oh,
everybody was so stoked. And I loved that. It was one of my favorite things looking around and seeing all of my friends winning together. I loved that feeling. And so I think that just carried with me into this business. Like, how could I create a business where when I look around, I'm seeing us all crush it, right? I want that. And so maybe it comes off as generosity. Maybe it is generosity. I don't know. But that's really what that was really the moment from my skate career that has put me in the position today where I just don't want to be the only one doing it. I want to look around and see everybody else killing it as well.
that's good. That's good. I think you're right. I think it is generosity. I think it's wanting to see other people succeed. Like that's definitely generosity.
Yeah.
Is that where the call to politics came? Was wanting to see your town crush it, or
No,
was
it was
it?
different, so different. The the thing about politics is it was never on my radar. I never had a desire to do it ever. And that's how I know this one was so clearly from the Lord, right?
Mm,
And it was organic how it happened. Basically, I married the girl next door. So my wife, I knew since we were kids. Our parents shared a yard. Like she was truly like the girl next door.
wow.
And she ended up going to school, couldn't wait to leave. My skate career took off. And so I was traveling, 6 to 8 months out of the year. And so I was stoked to come home and recharge. And when we got connected and started dating, she was like, "Why are we still here? Like, this is like a slow, sleepy town." We started having kids, and then it was like, "This is an awesome place to have kids." Right. Well, not too long ago, she started kind of asking that question again, like, should we go see what else is out there? Like, These are all the things our city's missing. And when she said it, I was immediately like, nope, I don't want to leave here. I love it here. This is the best place. And over multiple conversations, one night I threw out there, I was like, babe, instead of us talking about what our city doesn't have and going to look at other areas that might have that, what if we get involved and we become part of the process to create what we're missing? I did not realize the repercussions of that statement until she looked at me and said, okay, what are you going to do?
Wow.
And so I started basically researching what I could do and, what I could do that didn't mean I was going to step away from my business. I love my business. It's not at a place of running without me, nor do I want it to be. And so I looked at city council and went, you know what? This is a part-time thing. And I think it uses all my skill sets. It's local economy, driving the economy. It's real estate, which I do for a living. It's management of money. It's, infrastructure. It just seemed like it lined up perfectly. And so I ran. I had no clue what that meant. It was a very competitive election. There was 10 other people that were running.
Wow.
And I became the kind of one who came in the side door that nobody was really anticipating winning, and I won. So that's kind of how I got involved.
That's cool. Um, Something you think you're going to be around a while, or is it just in the scene? I
Um,
mean, you said kids, but I mean, your youngest is super young. So
yeah,
affecting where they grow up, that's a long time commitment, right?
yeah, that's right. So on city council, it's a 4-year term. And so I'm halfway through my first term. I have a feeling I'll probably run one more time. So if I got reelected, that will give me a total of 8 years to build out what I'm really trying to do here. And this is the hardest part. Like, my wife and I started talking about things that we're missing. There is an opportunity for us to create it for us, but you're really creating it for the kids. So
Mhm.
it's long term what we're doing. So I'm really focusing on how do I create an area that my kids would want to stay at, which in turn would mean all the other parents that are in this similar life cycle to us. How do we create a community so that their kids will stay as well?
Yeah, that's good. That's
Or at
really
least have the option to stay and then want to stay.
right. And we talk about it in our community all the time. I spend a lot of time coming into high school classes and speaking,
Yeah.
and just giving kids an idea of the opportunities that are available in the town we live in. And I mean, we're a small town, it's 47,000 people. So it's a super small town, but we have lots of companies that are moving here consistently and lots of plans of growth in neighborhoods. I mean, my dad and I bought a piece of property, and the property next to that is plans for 238 homes. Excuse me, 338 homes, and then right next door to that's another 200 homes. That's 538 homes inside the next 5 years. That's a
Yeah.
lot of growth.
That's right.
And so, giving high school kids this idea that you don't have to move an hour away,
Right.
there's lots of opportunity.
I agree.
And a pharmaceutical company just made $1 billion investment in this town. So it's a lot going on here.
Good.
And then the side note is you can either sit on the sidelines and complain, or you can get involved and say, hey, this is how we think it should go, and get involved. Like you said it, like be there.
Yeah. That's
Um,
right.
Man, you've had a great story to tell. And you're not even 40 yet, are you, Mikey?
I am now. I'm 42 actually.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So still early.
I still have time.
Lots of,
God willing, I have time.
yeah. So the last question, your idea of financial independence, retire early. I know retirement's nowhere near on your like quick, like that's not on your quick timeline, but
No.
retirement has different words for different people, right? Retire could be, hey, it's mailbox money, and now I'm out making an impact in a way that I have lots of time for, because there's money being generated, right? Which is financial independence. What effect do you hope that has on your children? Because you're in their life in a very consistent way because of how you've set your life up to this point. And
Mm.
like I said, you're only 42.
Mm.
What do you, what do you see? What do you hope they catch from that?
Well, I'll tell you the The older I get, the more I'm actually firm on this idea that I don't think we're actually supposed to retire, period.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean you're not supposed to thrive towards getting to a place where you don't have to work, where you have the choice to work. And so you see that shift over in many different ways. A lot of people will retire and they'll go get involved in local politics. They'll, start doing work for a nonprofit. They'll mentor. Like there are a lot of ways for you to get involved that maybe you're not getting paid for, but you're still providing value to those around you. I think for me, what I would like to pass on to my kids, at least financially speaking, I want them all to have a drive to earn. And I think that's actually more driven on using your skill set to the highest probability. And then maybe the money that comes in is maybe just a cool way to track it.
Right.
But I want them to know how to earn. I want them to manage money correctly so that they're spending less than they make and so that they're investing and probably most importantly, so that they're giving as well. And then, a big one for me is I don't want any of my kids to view money for anything more than it is. What I say about money very often is that it's a highlighter. It really brings out what's already in us. And so if you struggle with greed, you put more money behind it and it's really going to show itself. If you're insecure, your insecurity is not going to go away with money. It's actually going to become worse. And also on some of the positive notes, if you're a giver, you put money behind somebody and you're going to give more abundantly. And so I want to make sure that my kids' foundation is correct. And then how money is applied is done in a way that just gives them more resources, really, to glorify the Lord. At the end of the day, that's all I could hope for them.
I love that. And I want to stop right there because I think I was going to say, what's the most impactful thing you can say? But I don't think you can say anything any more impactful than that.
Yeah, I
Everything
appreciate
we
that.
do is to do it unto the glory of the Lord. I appreciate that, Mikey. Man, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story today. Um, from the skateboard to millions in dollars in real estate. That's such a cool story, man. Thank you for your time, buddy.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.